Scope and lifetime. Fortunately for you guys, you don't have to worry too much about these two aspects of a variable, but it's still a good idea to learn what we mean by the scope and a lifetime of a variable. So scope is an indication of what part of the program has access to the variable. So let me try to clear it up by talking or giving an example. So suppose you're using Microsoft Word, right? You're typing stuff, you're making your excellent essay or something. Now what's happening in the background is that there's a lot of variables being created and destroyed all the time, and these are stuff you can never see unless you're a hacker or a Microsoft Office programmer yourself. These were things that the programmers used for designing the Microsoft Word program. So there's only a certain amount of variables which you have access to, and there's a lot more variables which you never will deal with. And similar stuff for Visual Basic. You will define variables which are only accessible between, suppose, event procedures, nothing else. And there will be variables which every part of the program, every object has access to. So that's what we mean by scope. Lifetime, on the other hand, is how long the variable lasts after its birth, after you declare it. Some variables last only within an event code or event procedure. Some variables last until you close the program itself. So back to scope, there are the variables which has the highest scope or the broadest scope are those which are accessible by any part of the program. Then they remain there until you close the application. Procedure level scope, as you might have guessed, they are only accessible, or they have their lifespan until a set of procedures have been run. So you have set a button, you click that button, and a set of codes or procedures are carried out. So if you define your variable within that set of procedures, only that procedure has access to it, nothing else. And there's also block level scope, which are even more limited in its access. So like you can define codes or set of codes within a procedure, and you can define a variable right there. So it has even less scope. So let's see some examples. Here you see variables being defined. Suppose the sales variable, right? So there's a sales variable defined in the first private subroutine for the disk 15 button or the 15% discount button, and it's also declared inside the disk 20 button subroutine, which is the code for clicking the 20% discount button. So these two sets of codes are for the 15% discount and 20% discount button. And if you define a variable within these codes, these sections of codes, they only last until the section of code lasts. So they only last or they're only accessible within the section of code itself. And this is what we mean by procedure level variable. You will see there are a few lines which are green, and these are what we call comments. So if you put at the beginning of any line of code a tick or a single quote, that line becomes a comment. So when the compiler compiles your program, the compiler figures out what it needs to do, or the program needs to do its operations. It basically ignores these lines of codes or the comment sections, because they are intended for reading purposes or helping out the programmer identify what a program is, what it's supposed to do, and any other program figure out your code. Anyways, here we see example of a class level variable. You see in the picture, private total calories as decimal is that line of code basically is defining a class level variable, and this variable is seen by all the event procedures everywhere in the program. It is accessible, and that's what a class level variable is, and they last until the application end. On the other hand, in the first private subsection you see dim daily calories, so that's a procedure level variable, and once the procedure ends the variable does not is not there anymore, it doesn't exist. So for class level variables you need to have private at the first of the line, and for procedure level variables you use dim for those things.